We're finally here, the penultimate video of this series, and yes, I finally learned to use that word correctly. So far, we've gone through every expansion and tested out its leveling. Next week, we will do the big ranking video, taking all that we've seen and finding which is the best expansion for leveling in World of Warcraft. If you want to see that, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Those of you who have been following this series may already have a good idea which expansion might take the top spot, but I'm here to say that we might possibly have a contender on our hands. Dragonflight is the expansion that Blizzard advertises as best for leveling at the moment, and boy did they put many incentives into playing it. Speaking of, I have to preface this, I did do this during the current leveling event that Blizzard has going on. I'll be making a video soon about it, telling you all that you need to know. However, the important part here is that there is a 20% EXP buff that it gives. I can't really turn that off, and this event lasts over a month, so I couldn't really wait. So when I get to the part where I mention how long it took to level to 70, I'll give an estimation on top of the recorded time. The event also drops satchels that can give gear, but I didn't open any of them until I actually hit level 70, so it didn't really taint the gearing portion of this. With all that out of the way, did Blizzard turn Dragonflight into the best leveling expansion out there? Let's find out, starting with right off the bat, I have to praise my favorite aspect of leveling through Dragonflight, the player choice. This expansion offers the most different ways to level your character to 70, starting with the ability to pick any zone you want to level in addition to questing, dungeons, world quests, events, bonus objectives, crafting professions, and gathering professions, and in some cases, the solo follower dungeons. This is kind of part of world quests, but you can even level through dragon riding, both doing the races and just flying around because there are so many areas to discover. Whereas most expansions just offer questing and dungeons, Dragonflight decided to give you XP from most everything you could possibly do in the Dragon Isles. Queue for a few dungeons while you make some gold and XP gathering some herbs. Want some free levels? Well, the world quests are the easiest that I've seen in this game. From racing to rock climbing and even just flying through circles in the air. There were multiple times that I got a whole quest worth of XP in under a minute because the side quests were that easy. But no place says speed in World of Warcraft like the Onaran Plains. Even outside of this current leveling event, you can easily get up to a 50% increase in XP while in this zone. 25% of that is from your warband buff, and an extra 25 because the Emerald Dream buff. With the current leveling event, which runs through May 20th, you can get your XP buff up to 95%, combining the aforementioned bonuses with the baseline 20% that the event gives, and an additional 10% from XP potions that are dropped from the satchels that you loot. Along with that, if the Dark Moon Fair is up, then hey, that's 95%. I'm not going to factor in the event when I give Dragonflight a rating, and I'll talk more about the event in a follow-up video as I said, but it's worth mentioning nonetheless. Now, this player choice comes at a minor cost. That is travel time. Yes, you can choose many different leveling methods, but it does take time to bounce between them. Despite the XP increases, which I should mention I did not use the 10% potion buff, I leveled to 70 in 7 hours and 37 minutes. If I had to guess, you can expect 8 to 8.5 hours without the event running. I think this is partially my fault. I did bounce around a bit. As some of you know, I leveled the same way in every expansion. I completed zones in their entirety, so every main, side, bonus, and world quest in Dragonflight's case. So as I said, travel times and all that. But I also started in the Onaran Plains. If you really want to take advantage of the baseline buffs that the zone has, save it towards the end of your leveling. Maybe go there at 50 to really capitalize on the percent increases. Speaking of buffs, there is one universal buff that every single character gets in Dragonflight, a free cheat death. Blizzard really is piling in the reasons to level here. Should you take enough damage that your health drops to 0, the game gives you a +1 mushroom and heals you. And if you still manage to perish, the run back is very easy as they give you a ghost dragon to fly back on, which is one of the few expansions that lets you fly back to your body. The only other one that I can specifically remember is Wrath of the Lich King. Why it's not a feature in every expansion, I don't know, but I do know that there is an elephant in the room that we have to talk about, the story. I made a big deal about it in the last 2 videos, so I have to bring it up here. Honestly, Dragonflight's story is hit or miss, at least for the zones themselves. Every zone is about restoring the different dragon stones, which can be cool if you like the dragons in World of Warcraft. I personally do, but I know that some people just don't care about it. However, Dragonflight does contain arguably the best quest chain in the entire game. In Thaldraszus, you help the bronze Dragonflight. As you can imagine, messing with time is dangerous. I don't want to spoil it too much, but the questline has you go on a wild scramble through time to save Chromie from a mishap. You see so many moments from Azeroth's history that we haven't seen in the game before, including an alternate timeline where every character we know and love is a Murloc. Blizzard, I'm just saying, I would play the heck out of that spin-off. Please make it into an actual game or expansion. Okay, thanks. It is, to this date, my favorite questline ever. As a massive lore nerd, it really jingles my jingles. So yes, the story isn't for everyone, but I do think that this is a questing experience that everyone can enjoy. That is why I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. There are so many elements that I absolutely love. If the story was harder hitting, easily a 10 out of 10. Despite that, it offers the most modern take on leveling in World of Warcraft. A take that says, give them everything, let them do whatever they want, and make sure that they have all the tools they need to do it. Side note, if you're the kind of player that enjoys a populated world, Dragonflight had the most amount of players going through it out of any of the expansions that I tested. It was inflated by the event, yes, but being the recommended one to play through while leveling, it will always be the most populated. It's an MMO after all. It's always great seeing other players, but what about the content specifically made for that? Let's talk about... So far, every expansion post-Legion hasn't really hit the mark in this category, mostly because Blizzard shifted from making good dungeons to making good Mythic Plus dungeons. And while I won't call it a return to form, I will say that the needle is going back in the correct direction when it comes to Dragonflight dungeons. Inoffensive would be the best word I could describe this dungeon pool, for the most part. The Nokud Offensive is the outlier here and it does live up to its name. The rest of the dungeons are either decent for leveling or not bad for leveling. The worst I could say about them is there's a little bit too much RP in them, and some have gimmicks that thankfully can be out DPS'd. But at the same time, I can't really point to one of these dungeons and call it amazing for leveling. They're kinda just there. I'm gonna have to take a specific look at every expansion's dungeons. Maybe when the leveling event is over, I can do a deep dive series kinda like this one, but actually focusing on those. So far, I've been rating these dungeons with the idea that you are both questing and queuing at the same time. So when it comes to pools like Dragonflight dungeons, I don't really have much to say. In the lens of occasionally running them, I think Dragonflight dungeons are a 6 out of 10. I wouldn't go out of my way to spam them. If you're a fan of modern dungeon design, this would be one of the best ones to queue for outside of maybe Legion. It is for sure the weakest part of Dragonflight as a leveling expansion in my opinion. They vary in length a decent amount, so there is variety there. Everything from the Ruby life pool that is basically just 3 areas, to a dungeon like the revamped Old Man, which this is probably a hot take, but I kinda like the remake, likely due to the fond memories that I have during the Dragonflight pre-patch, where you got to run the dungeon to level and gear up new characters, but I never really had a problem with its length. It was not a very good M+ dungeon, I will admit that, but as a leveling dungeon, the worst part about it is the long RP points, which you can kind of avoid if someone sacrifices themselves to the dreaded time stop wall. So as I mentioned, nothing here excites me, but outside of the Nokud Offensive, I can tolerate them, fitting of a 6 out of 10. As I mentioned, the dungeons are the weakest part of Dragonflight as a leveling expansion. Let's talk about the strongest part. This has always been the most numerical section of every video. This entire series, I put forth one goal to be achieved by the gearing section: reach item level 350. Some have gotten close, but no expansion hit the mark until now. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you the first 10 out of 10 any expansion has gotten in this category. That's right, I'm starting off with the rating. I have always said that a perfect gearing experience would be sending you right into the War Within dungeons, which requires item level 350. 50. Dare I say that I even got the short end of the stick in this department. The extra 20% XP buff means that yes, I leveled faster than normal, however, it meant that I had less of a chance to get good loot. But even with that, it is no surprise why Dragonflight managed to hit the mark. It gives you gear out the wazoo. Just about every single quest chain has at least one piece that it gives you. Combine that with readily available world quests that show you their reward up front, and you can practically hunt for upgrades. There is a caveat to the world quest that I think Blizzard should take a look at. Once you reach level 64, most of the gear rewards from them turn into crafting tokens, which, unless you want to spend some gold on it, it's kinda useless. It does mean that anyone crafting while leveling can use these tokens for their crafts, but other than that, it kinda sucks. However, there are so many good sources of gear that it doesn't really matter. The main storyline is packed full of rewards. The gold is great too, at 6.5k, one of the best showings in that department. You don't get any bags unless you craft them yourself, but I've come to learn that you're gonna upgrade any bags you get anyways. I haven't come out of any expansion with the top tier bags. You can make even more gold than what I did if you pick up a gathering profession along the way. I do have a video plan that may or may not involve that, but for now I can say Dragonflight gearing is a resounding success. I really wish I didn't decide to make a rule of no decimal ratings because I am torn between two overall scores for Dragonflight. On one hand, it scored perfect in the gearing section and near perfect with the leveling, but the dungeons are just not super exciting. It has one or two stinkers and nothing really boosts it up. So by all accounts, I should give it an overall of 8 out of 10, but that's too low in the grand scheme of things. If I had been doing decimals, I would swiftly give it an 8.5 rating, but I'm not using them, and an 8 feels too low, which means Dragonflight is getting a rating of 9 out of 10, which after further consideration I think is actually warranted. This didn't affect the score at all, but it did give us dynamic flight. It is an absolute blast using updated flying mounts, a bonus that every expansion has benefited from. Look, I'm sorry if you think that flying is bad, and you're entitled to your opinion, but you know what is objectively bad? Blade's Edge Mountains without flying. I do truly believe that allowing dynamic flight in every expansion from level 10 was a good decision on Blizzard's part. So while I'm not boosting the score with it in mind, I just wanted to give the credit where credit is due. If the rest of the changes they made to Dragonflight's leveling continues throughout the expansions, I am all for it. The cheat death is nice, the random XP buffs are fun, and the absolute abundance of choice is pristine. These last few sections have been a bit short, but I said everything I wanted to get out, and with the big ranking video around the corner, I'll keep any additional comments to that. What I really want to know is what you think. Even if you haven't watched the whole series, I want to know what your rankings for these leveling expansions are. My thoughts have been thoroughly documented, and there may be some minor changes here and there in the next video, but if you have disagreed with any of my compliments or criticisms of expansions, now is the time to let me know, so I can take everything into consideration. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. I always appreciate it. Next week is a big one. I'm going to really get down to business so that I can get it out in time. Stay tuned, I'll see you then, and have a wonderful journey.